morning. Welcome to B Cube Sunday morning. I'm here in the perpetual war with what's left of my hair. I'm joined by Randy Brown.
Good
Now,
morning.
Randy is my cousin. Now, what does my cousin have to do with writing? Actually, I don't know. Randy, are you a writer by any stretch?
I have written a few articles, but nothing lengthy.
Technical reports and
Yeah, yep, a
you
lot of
know,
that, a lot of writing in that, a lot of professional writing.
yeah, that's a good stuff. Well, if you read, if you can you see the chats on the right?
I cannot.
Okay, down at the very bottom on the right side of your screen, you should see a chat button about midpoint.
Yep,
Click it.
I see it. Yep, I see it.
Now, do you see all these people have said good morning?
I do. I see my
Oh,
daughter. Hi, Krista. That's all right.
oh, that's your daughter. So that's my second cousin. It's
Ooh,
okay, Krista. Don't worry. And I see Jeff Sturgeon just signed on. Now I'm gonna just get this done because it's one of my favorite things to do. This is the cover of our next book. Uh, Jeff Sturgeon is our artist, and it's called. It'd be good if my memory was in really good shape, but it's called Our American Storm.
hmm,
It is an anthology of a bunch of short stories, and Jeff did that artwork for us. So, but what we're talking about today, and this is where audience participation is going to be welcome, and that is um, kind of not just escaping our upbringing, but coping with it or rising from it. Because my God, there have been so many books written that by people that they their mother wrecked their lives, their father wrecked their lives, their second cousin Krista wrecks their lives, whatever. But that your upbringing makes a big difference. And what Randy and I, when I saw, here's what drove this show you're seeing. Randy mentioned that he had a conversation with Jim Wright after he shared a Jim Wright post. Now, the Randy I knew from that family, would younger Randy have ever shared that post, Randy?
no,
Would anybody in our family have ever shared that post?
they wouldn't even have read it. You know,
Huh?
they wouldn't even have read it. They would not have looked at it. Right? It wouldn't be in
Well,
their eyesight.
or they would have blocked us. Yeah.
Right?
We, Randy and I had the joy of growing up in a very conservative. Well, here I'll let you describe it because I might add something more pejorative.
Well, I think obviously we share the same last name, so I think probably the point where we really joined up was in Kansas when Bob, you and your family were living on the farm on Grandpa's farm, and for us, Dad had moved us to Missouri, but then my mother passed away, and we moved back to the farm in Kansas and really just lived maybe I don't know 200 feet from you, and that's where we really got to know each other. Your mom, your dad was my dad's brother, and then your family. Then we actually lived in Grandpa's house, right? And it was we're farmers, dirt farmers from Western Kansas, very conservative little tiny town of about 100 people that we lived outside of. Hardworking farm ranchers. Went to church 3 times a week. And growing up, you needed to make sure you accepted Christ as your Savior, got baptized, right, and did all the right things, right. So I think even after y'all moved to Texas, and then we eventually moved off the farm to another town about 18 miles away, that upbringing stayed all the way through, and all the way through my 20s and 30s, and I've got my daughter on, so she'll appreciate it because it carried into my kids. Uh, very a very conservative religious view of the world, um, until things begin to change, right, and begin to see things that didn't necessarily align with my religious teachings or my conservative upbringing, and it really began to uh, call into question what you know where I wanted to go from there, right? How I wanted to believe going forward, what I wanted to do going forward, and so I would say I think we were probably about as conservative as you can get. I can remember comments being made that if you weren't of our particular religion, you were going to hell, um, and
That was the
all of Mister.
Catholics for the most part, wasn't it?
It was, yes, yes, and I still remember because we're old enough to remember when JFK was shot, and his funeral was on TV. I still remember being there in grade school in Brownell, Kansas when that went down, and I just remember the grandparents saying, "Well, what a shame that the president went to hell," that kind of thing, right? That was sort of the sentiment we grew up in. So
And then
I
one of
could go
our
on and on, but I think that sets the stage.
well, there was the fact that when one of our cousins married a Catholic, she came as close to being excommunicated from the farm as you could get.
Right.
But basically, that's it. It was. I won't quote my grandfather for what he said about describing who he thought should be lined up against a wall and machine gunned during the riots in Los Angeles and Detroit. Uh, but it was just. And how old were you, Randy, when you finally came to grips that the world wasn't 6,000 years old?
Probably. I mean, you learned about it once you kind of got into your late teens, or at least I did, but rejected it, right? As those just crazy evolutionists that were trying to discourage you from your religious beliefs. And it probably wasn't until I got probably the late 30s, early 40s before I began to question. I still remember we were talking about this the other day. Our sweet cousin Nancy, who we were at a family reunion one time, and she kind of looked at me and said, "You still don't believe that, do you?" you know, like you can't be that stupid, are you? Uh, she was really the genius of the family, and
Oh my God.
and it's kind of like, well, I think I do, but probably, it took a long time. It takes a long time to kind of begin to break loose. I mean, I think conservative religious teaching, or any religious teaching, is very hard to turn against, or not turn away from, right? Especially if you've been very deep into it. And at one point in my late 20s, I had gotten to the point where I actually had papers to preach in the denomination. I mean, that's how serious I was about religious teachings and religious adherence. So it took a while to begin to say, all of these other things you're hearing are wrong, and what you believe is right, right? And it's hard to begin to question what you believe, especially if you're going to go to hell if you don't believe that, right? Which is the threat. It's the ultimate threat is if you don't believe what I do, you're going to spend all of eternity in eternal damnation.
Yeah,
And to think about that and go, okay, am I really right? Is that really going to happen, or not?
and
And at
you've
some
been
point you
taught
go, I don't think so. You've been taught that, and you've taught other people
since
that.
you've been taught since you were 5 years old.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. So if there was a, I mean, I know what it was for me. Uh, for me, it was when I got old enough. I remember saying to my grandfather, because it was 1968, and the world was waking up, and bless his heart, he watched Walter Cronkite every night.
Mhm.
And so I got to see the news, and it wasn't Fox News. It was, and I remember the first time I said to him, I got my rights when they were trying to uh, order me around, which frankly I needed a little bit of ordering. Uh, but just awareness of the world is what it was for me. Suddenly I could see the world, and there was a whole lot more to it. I remember I never could understand how come we were losing that war in Vietnam. I mean, every night Walter Cronkite would read to me how many of them we killed and then how many of us they killed. And it seemed like they ought to be running out of people pretty soon. But, and then all of a sudden, that's when little things like that start making you realize that perhaps everything you've been taught has been taught to you by people with feet of clay,
Mhm.
that it is not exactly like you've been told. Now I'm noticing my our group here that is listening. I know you're there. I can see you. Is very quiet, and that's not normally the sake. Fun terminology like Hamburger Hill was yeah, and that's
That's
the way.
amazing.
I love that's the way it is. I actually liked Walter Cronkite, and then he went on and did some Saturday morning show. I forget what it was, but it was kind of a "You Are There" or something.
Mhm.
But I found, now tell me where, if you Randy, how much traveling as a young adult and adult did you do?
Well, I joined the Air Force straight out of high school, and in large part, I think that was because I wanted to get out of the small conservative area we grew up in. That really only had one choice, was to be a farmer or a rancher, right? And try to scrape some living out of the earth. And so I went in the Air Force hoping to travel. Did 4 years in the Air Force. Got to see. Yeah, I guess it was really interesting. My first real, after I went through all my technical training and all of that, my first real permanent assignment was at an Air Force base in Utah. Right. So all of a sudden I'm greatly exposed to the LDS religion. Right. And all of a sudden you become a minority, right? You're a Protestant, and now you're in your own country where you have been the majority all the time, and now you're a significant minority in your religious beliefs, and that begins to, you kind of start to think what's going on there, and then we moved around, but got out, and we moved. We lived in California. We moved back to Utah. We moved to Ohio. Then we went overseas, and went overseas for 3.5 years to Saudi Arabia. That was probably um, one of the most challenging, not only just because of where you were, but just from a understanding that you're a racial minority, you're a religious minority, you're a minority in every way that is, and to live in a country like that, with your daughter and your wife, who the females are treated differently than the males. And I think getting to know, right, not just living there, but getting to know the Saudis and spending time with them, that was very, very eye opening. I mean, that probably pried open my mind a lot more than I realized at the time. And frankly, didn't realize how much of it had evolution and thinking had gone on until we got back to the States, went back to our church, went back to our friends, and realized we don't fit in anymore. We think differently. We view the world differently. We see people differently. And I realized people saw us differently then, right? Now we're becoming, well, what happened to you? You know, you've gotten liberal. I don't think we've gotten liberal. I think we've just gotten tied into other people, and we begin to see the world in a different thing. What was great during that time, we also did 2 round the world trips. So we got to meet people from 14, 15 different countries. And so um, I think through that, it began to reinforce the world that I was brought up in, and the world I was taught was reality, and is not the way it really is, right? When you start to expose yourself to the bigger world, right, and different cultures and different ways of looking at things, different religions, and living with them, spending time with them, getting to know them, you, I think it really begins to you get a little more empathy. You try to get a little more understanding. You hopefully you're a little more humane. You know what? And you're not so quick to say, well, you're Muslim, you're going to hell, right? Right. That's stuff like that where you just begin to go, maybe my views of the afterlife and my views of the current life are wrong and too rigid.
Yeah, you're dead on. I found that just, I mean, for me, just getting away from the religion and the constant reinforcement of the family that you know your uh, you know how I put this, empathy is not something that is a cornerstone of the conservative religion. Is one thing, and as I was telling you the other day, one of the key things that I found the most valuable teachers I've ever had was an LDS gentleman, Thomas Covey. Thomas Covey. His 7 habits of highly effective people never made me super highly effective, but it taught some fundamental truths to it. And the best one I always thought was seek first to understand and then to be understood. Because
Mhm.
if you can't try and reach out and understand these people you're dealing with, they will never understand you, or you're never going to succeed in making them understand you. It's and I always thought that that was probably the moment when um, one of the moments when my worldview changed. The oh, the Navy, yeah. Oh, you want to find conservative? Go look at Navy officers. Yeah, but I tell you what, I didn't hang around the officers' mess. This is for Baba Yaga. I didn't hang around the uh, officers' mess when I was in the Navy. I was usually out down in a old storeroom playing Dungeons and Dragons or poker, and the we weren't studying the Bible. We had the books that somebody had picked up on shore leave. God, we actually, I can't believe I actually used that term, but on Liberty, and then they bring it back and we swap those books. So I got exposed to a whole bunch of stuff that I couldn't get exposed to growing up. For example, you remember we had an Aunt Wanda.
Mhm.
Now our Aunt Wanda was the only sister and all little brothers, and she was the Uh, yeah, but Baba, did you play it on board the Enterprise? Um, the and She found me reading science fiction, and she talked to the preacher about it, and science fiction was bad, you know. And
Mhm.
she banned Star Trek from her. I mean, imagine banning Star Trek. You know, peace, cooperation uh, in the galaxy. So I had to do all my reading of science fiction standing up in the library in between the stacks, and that's why I learned to read 600-700 words a minute, because I was just plowing it through. And that's part of it. Yeah, learning that maybe the limitations that a certain religion or a certain philosophy would impose upon you as a human being weren't really the right answer. And that was a lot for me. Uh oh. Oh, so I was reading Baba's point about somebody who played D&D. Did you ever get sucked into the dark side of D&D, Brandy?
I did not. I worked with folks that did, but it just never really interested me. I like science fiction, but I was never into the role playing part of it.
Yeah, I had the only Dungeon Master's guide on the entire Enterprise. I ran the dungeons. It was kind of fun,
Yeah.
most of them. So you seem to have adjusted to. I mean, I will confess, I observed you as what happened to Randy was my honest to God question. When I saw that Randy is making posts on Facebook that are almost liberal, I
Yep.
mean, Rush Limbaugh would not approve of what he just posted. So was that and that was kind of like a coming out or going public
Right.
with your perspective. Did it have any sense of that? Did you think about it in that way?
No, no, I did, and kind of like we chatted earlier the week. I had um, before I retired uh, from the Air Force. I was in some fairly senior positions, and I felt very much like I wanted to. Uh, my allegiance was to the Constitution, like we talked about. You take your oath to the Constitution of the United States, not to a particular party or to a particular uh, person in power. And so I felt like as somebody with that responsibility, I should try to be as apolitical as possible. So any of my public comments that I would make on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that would be intentionally apolitical and would be more probably family oriented or something like that. Although they encourage us not to put family pictures or family things on Facebook because other people read it. So I was probably quite boring during that time. But when I retired in 17, those feelings that I would express to people privately that were friends, I felt quite comfortable making public because at that point I'm now retired and whatever I say does not have a reflection on the organization that I'm leading or anything like that. So yeah, so uh, that evolution had occurred, and I think probably if you talk to my family or close friends, they had seen that already happen probably late by I would say by the mid 2005, 26, 27, 2005, 2006, 2007, I should say. By then I had pretty much morphed away from where I'd been, and then by 17 when I retired, it was just really kind of becoming comfortable being much more public because now it's a private truly a private citizen and could just express my views without worrying about um, it being associated with a professional status.
Now, question, cousin Krista, are you still there? If you are, what did your family think? Was it like, thank God, Dad, you're not being a doofus anymore? Or was it like, oh, what happened to him? How's that for, yeah. So did you guys notice even? I mean, I know as kids, they don't always notice. My daughter never hardly noticed her father. Um, Politically, I mean, well, I did take her to a few protests when she was young. Uh, okay. Well, I'll give you a second to think about that, Krista, because that's definitely a loaded question.
And you can say whatever you want.
It is, or you can say nothing.
I think certainly Krista can validate. I think, um, for an example, when Krista and her brother, who are 3 years apart, uh, transitioned into the high school. Uh, I had always sort of kind of worked with the church in various capacities, and then I decided I would join with as a sponsor of the youth group to try to stay connected with them. And there's a lot you would see at that, right? One of the things that just astounded me was when, again, this is a very conservative, rather prominent church in the Dayton area at the time, a church of a couple thousand people, probably a mega church at that. But if I would look at the kids that graduated high school, and you look at the size of the youth group in high school, and you look at what happened in the first year after high school, you realize that probably 90% of them dropped out and went somewhere else, right? And that really began to say, well, we're obviously not very effective, right? If we lose 90 to 95%. And so I think that there's seeing that and realizing that and seeing them in my own kids that are like, yeah, I'm not sure I'm buying what you're selling, Dad. Right. And so, then I went I said, well, let's move forward then. So let me go work with the kids that have graduated, the college age kids. Uh, and again, you'd see the same thing, but yeah, and now they're beginning to question. Now they're starting to ask hard questions of you, right? So why do you believe, right? And 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 I remember I would turn that to my dad son, right? My dad's passed now, but sometimes I say, Dad, why do you believe what you believe? You've had a very tough life. How do you reconcile how life has treated you with your belief system? And his answer back to me was, I just have to trust. Right? I just have to believe. I and I just kind of I think there's got to be more to faith than blind faith, right? There's got to be more to thinking about how you're going to live your life and what values you're going to put in your life than just saying, for those things I can't understand, that I don't know why God did that or allowed that to happen, then I'm just going to have to accept it and move on and not question it. And so I really got to the point where I felt like a lot of Christianity was could best be described as a relationship, like a really bad relationship, where no matter what God did to you, you should say thank you, may I have more please, and keep believing in him, right? And that just, at that point, I couldn't, it no longer made sense to me.
I I think you brought up a good point. I mean, what you talked about is rational discussions within the family um, you had as you explored with your father, or like I like to call him Uncle Bill.
Yeah.
And by the way, all these people we talk about, they were in general very kind people. They were good people. they too had been raised into this um, world. And imagine if you didn't have a Walter Cronkite or something to share the news, or a Facebook or a computer screen to go look and see, or if you didn't have but one local newspaper that only printed, you know, you might not find your way out of that. Um, the it's 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 not an easy trip. Now I don't know, Randy. You and I seem to have survived it with, and I don't see any scars, and I don't see where either of us are carrying the mark of the beast on our forehead for having been that. But I'm reading what Carol Squires said. She was the youngest of three daughters. You know, I had eight sisters, and the girls, we are guys. Girls had it different, and they had it tougher. I remember my mother went out on a limb backing my sisters, and they wore pants to church. Now I don't know. You were Assembly of God, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, which is a milder version of the Pentecostals. They were almost closer to Baptists, I think, and in fact, some cases they were milder than Baptists. And so, yeah. Now, do you think there's any big difference in how our path to progressive, our current, what I would call, or do you consider yourself a progressive?
I think so. I
Okay,
think
well, I
as
didn't want to label you against
yeah.
your will because I consider myself a progressive. In fact, I tend to believe in the most of the principles of socialism.
Right.
I believe in, and if you wanted to hear me boil my religion down to one religion, go read the parable of the sheep and the goats in Matthew 25. You know, if you see
Right.
somebody that's hungry, you feed them. If they're lonely, you visit them. If they're naked, you give them clothes. You know, that's the essence of what I believe a good religion will teach. Now you can go further, but I love the basic essence. And for the rest of you people who don't, who say, well, why should I give them clothes? Let them go out and get a job and find their own clothes. Why should I feed them? Let them go get a job. Well, I tell you what, did anybody work harder than you, your brother, and your father uh, uh, eating chickens and selling milk to make a living?
Yeah. No, we, you bring up a good point. I look back on my life, and I look back on my career, and look back on how I believe you are. You may not realize it at the time, but you have been helped by so many people along the path, right? Some people are encouragers. We talked about that before. We had Aunt Lois, right? Aunt Lois would always say, "Randy, I don't care whatever you do. I am always in your corner. If you ever need anything, you just let me know. I will be there for you. It doesn't matter what." Right? And there were other people in professional professional exercise coming up who would believe in you, right? Who would say, because you're looking at your failures and they're looking to say, no, you've got worth. And you're right. Dad worked his heart out. We had, I told you before, there was a period of time where the only income we had coming in was the eggs we could sell and the milk we could sell. And that was tough, tough stuff. We had, you know, we at times weren't really sure what we were going to eat the next day because there wasn't any food on the table. There was nothing in the freezer. But but because people would see a need and reach out to help you, and you've got to do the same thing. You It's so easy, I think, for people who take the opinion that you just need to go get a job and go buy your own clothes. They don't understand how much they've been helped along the way, how much other people have stepped in, or the government has stepped in and helped them along the way. And so we talked about empathy earlier. So they have no empathy for anybody. They can't say maybe what they need is not a third job, but they need a hand to help pull them up out of it. I know I had discussions here locally with the Economic Development Council when I was talking to them, and they were moaning about the fact that you couldn't get people to come work. And I'd say, well, what about the mom who can't afford childcare and is making $12 an hour and it just doesn't work for them? It is cheaper for them to not work because they can't afford to put gas in the car and have daycare and go work a job where they lose money every week. What if we look at it from a different perspective? What if we see the problem from their angle rather than from our angle, right? We maybe are people where we think we've made it ourselves. We didn't make it by ourselves. We made it because we had tons of people along the way that helped us along the way, whether it was encouragement or whether it was putting out a hand that pulled us along when we needed it. And if you can't pause and see how much help you got along the way to get to where you are, and if you aren't willing to do the same thing to other people, then you know you've lost any empathy you have. You lost any ability to help other people, and to just say, oh, just go get another job or work harder, and I don't care what happens to you. It's just it's just so coarse, right? And inhuman, in my opinion.
I think that's important. That is one of the most wonderful elements of it. I remember Aunt Lois. She gave me 5 books over my lifetime. Now, that may not seem like much, but I tell you what, I know that her and Norval worked for every nickel they made, you know. Uh, Small disability from Okinawa,
Yep.
but the idea that she cared enough about me to know that I wanted to read. And she was the first person I ever told that I wanted to be a writer to. And yeah, the world needs, as family, if you are family with somebody, you have an obligation, I think, to be supportive, to encourage. And none of us, I think, will ever look back on our lives and say, wow, we always did it right. We were always
Yep.
perfect. We were always good. But we can keep trying
Okay.
and do better as we can. But
This,
go
this
ahead.
thought that you pulled your, I don't know, just, I mean, the old saying I remember hearing from a kid on up, and probably using it myself, is pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? As if you just exert enough willpower and enough energy, you can make yourself better, make your life better, and you will pull yourself up. And it just doesn't work that way. You don't pull yourself up. It's you and a bunch of other people that pull you up, if that's what the term you want to use. That changes and I will, I mean, I look back and I'm very, very fortunate. The economic situation that the family and I are in is much different than I had growing up, where we were desperately poor. I think probably people would look at us and go, well, you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. No, we didn't. We may be better off financially, and we may hopefully have progressed some on how we view the world. We got there because of hundreds of people along the way that influenced us, that helped us, that guided us, that pushed us, encouraged us, whatever.
And
And you,
we had that.
yeah. And so my thing is, I want to be Aunt Lois, right? I want to be the
Yeah.
Aunt Lois.
Aunt Lois, bless her heart, none of us were perfect, but I tell you what, she always was somebody. Her, and the only time I ever got to eat beef was if Lois invited me over to spend after church Sunday, come over for Sunday dinner. And that was one of my great pleasures because she would cook a chuck roast, and that was good.
Yeah.
And she would bake a cake, and that was good. The I see Cheryl
Like,
said one of the meanest people in church every time the building is open. Some of the holiest are too busy to doing good to go to church. Okay, so let me check and see what happened to Randy. Well, he's still there. Oh, it's his camera went off. You still there, Randy? Okay, I'm pretty sure he's still there. All right. Well, guys, you're talking to a guy here or listening to a guy rant on who is like we talk about far less than perfect, but who got to do what I get to do what I do because I have so many people helping me. Be it Phil, Irene Radford, be it Karen Johnson, um, Anderson, uh, all the other hosts that show up on this stream. They are what makes this all successful. None of us. Who was the guy that wrote the book? No Man is an Island. And as I put out my earlier, I said Thomas Covey's quote: "The seek first to understand, then to be understood." If you, Randy gave a great example of trying to understand why maybe you can't get somebody to come to work for you. Maybe you can't afford to pay $25 an hour, and maybe they can't afford to work for less because having a job costs money. You got to drive to work. You got to have decent clothes. You have to be able to keep them clean. You got to shower. You got to get your hair cut. Well, I'm going to have to soon myself. All those little things that are incidental expenses to many people. Uh, huh. Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I'm
I'm
just
getting.
gonna say where we live. It's a very high cost of living area, not unlike a lot of other areas in the country. And so the people that do especially in the service industry, have to live an hour to an hour and a half drive away to be able to afford housing, to be able to try to make ends meet. And then every day they've got to commute in an hour and a half or so, maybe longer, one way, so 3 hours total, and then come work a shift making $15 an hour. And they have two or three kids. What do you expect? How do you expect them to make ends meet, right? How do we do that? So those are the kinds of things you gotta kind of work your way through, how do we help people be able to live a reasonable life, right? How do we? And we're getting much deeper here. It's kind of probably off topic, but I look at that and go, it's easy just to condemn people and say you're lazy, and you're not, but you need help, and you need people in the community that can help you. You need a government that can help you.
Well, can't say it much better, Randy. I mean, and that is because a lot of people who have done what you and I have done, which is risen from absolute poverty, trapped in a religious web, and told through the nature of conservatism that anything we do, we did it ourselves, and by God, we got to remember it's all the people around us that we that helped us get here,
Right.
and I like the way you've brought it out. And so I'm just a second here. I'm checking the time because if I don't, I've been known. Now I mentioned that I had noticed your posting on Facebook was getting more and more liberal over time, but it was uh, when you shared the Jim Wright post,
Yeah.
because Jim Wright, he's on next week,
Yep.
uh, and is one of the most bluntly honest people, and I would expect no less from somebody from a Navy SEAL on uh, what he thinks of our government. And I'm not going to ask you that because I know you still work for the government on occasion. I think you do.
I
I
do.
don't know.
Yeah. I
Irrelevant.
I
But
consult. Yeah.
we are living in an interesting time. Those of us with our religious upbringing, when we see the president getting out there and saying, well, he's got to do his part to bring about Armageddon so Jesus
Hmm.
can return, you know, it just goes to remind me of just how wrong these people are. Yeah, we got to go kill a few 100,000 people so that we can have some mythological being come back to earth and save us all from our own nature. God, it just makes me crazy. The way things are going these days, Jim's head may explode.
I think we have to say Happy Raptor Day, don't we? Isn't this the Raptor Day, March 22nd? And did you get your rotisserie chicken from Costco and have it ready for the Raptor to show up and eat it?
Oh, is the rapture scheduled again?
Today. Yes, it's today.
No
I
shit.
think that the people in the other, the people in Asia missed it now because they're already into tomorrow. But
Oh,
we got a little bit more time left. But yeah, there's a whole thread on Raptor Day versus Rapture Day. But it's just
if
another in
I
the
had
long line
known
of
that when you disappeared off the podcast, I would
boom.
have thought something was up.
That's right. That was the Raptor came to the door.
Oh man, if you guys
But
didn't grow up being taught about the rapture, here was the basic element. If you hadn't confessed every sin and sought forgiveness for every sin you had ever committed, you were good. You were safe. You were going to go with the rapture if that had happened. But if in the meantime you actually committed another sin, however slight, when the rapture occurred, the clouds were going to spread and all of those that were good were going to be drawn up, and everybody that wasn't was going to be left on earth to be tortured and suffered. Um, the they told us that the evil was in the government, obviously always in the government, and I have to believe them there that when the church and the government mix, it is always evil.
Yep.
Um, the
Uh, that's probably, I'll use that as just an example of when we came back from Saudi, right? And in Saudi, you see where especially when you live there, I think it's in any country and certainly ours too, but they're more so, where there is a relationship between the church and the state, right? To where they scratch each other's back, right? Where the state will turn a blind eye to some things that the church does that maybe, and the religious people will turn a blind eye to some of the things the state does, so they can help each other out and get their goals. And until somebody changes that relationship, that's how, and you begin to see the absolute corruption that comes along with that approach. because it isn't just about doing; it's about how money is handled and everything else. And I see this, and I would come back and say, even back when we came back in 1996, right, and begin to say, the thing that scares me the most is a nation that thinks they are a fill in the blank, a Christian nation or whatever, because we are not a Christian nation, right? We may have Christians in our nation, but we are supposed to be a multiple religious society, right? Theoretically, most of the people that came here before we founded the republic were escaping a state ordered religion like you had in most of the countries in Europe at the time, and wanted to have freedom of religion. But I think it's like everything else. The freedom, um, it's freedom for my religion, right? Not for yours, for the most part.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I distract you?
Nope.
Oh, yeah.
You got. I
That's
just thought I thought I'd be quiet and let you talk.
no. I was actually looking at a number. Uh, I don't want to go over, but I don't want to rush us to the end. It is. I'm sorry. I was reading one of the comments. It's a response to Cheryl Alexander, Looney Tunes, the Banana Splits, Johnny Quest, HR Puffin stuff. Now I don't know what comment it was that drove that response, but it's one of those wonderful things about seeing half of a conversation and just saying, "Okay, I really got to know the rest of this story."
Right.
But the this whole thing about did you know what almost destroyed Buddhism? When one of the Khans in China needed he found his government was failing and it was losing support and losing support. And so he worked out a deal where he got into a power sharing with the Buddhist people. And as soon as they got to be part of government, the Buddhists turned into really bad people for a while.
Mhm.
Government and religion, you've got to keep them separate because it will destroy them both.
Right.
I mean, imagine if Saudi Arabia, you familiar with the Twelvers?
Hmm.
Okay, now they're the Shia, but if you had a large group if that force got stronger in Saudi Arabia, it could be a very rough world. The the Shia, I mean the Twelvers, so people understand. Think of a Muslim Baptist that believes in the end times and wants to do everything they can to bring back the end times. And for the sake of our Muslim viewers, I will not go into a deeper explanation because I am confident I could screw it up, and the last thing I want to do is screw it up bad enough to get annoy my our people. But we've just got the world will be a better place if government and religion both understand their places are different.
Yep.
Um, the I remember reading once where in New England, the state of Massachusetts thought it should get into issuing marriage licenses, and the church was really pissed, saying the state has no authority in that. That is our deal. I think about how much better we could have been off if the state had left to the church's business, and if the church had left to the state's business. It would be a great world.
Right.
Now, okay, Alexander is telling Cheryl Alexander she loved Johnny Quest and the Banana Splits. Now, Randy, you're a year older than I am, if I recall.
Probably right in that range. I think so.
Yeah, I was born in 58.
Yeah, 55. You're a couple of years younger than me.
Oh, I thought you were. I thought you were younger than my sister Connie.
Now I'm 55. I think she's 56 probably. I think she's a year younger than me.
Who
Is
are
she
you
not?
guys kidding? I'm 67.
Yeah, I'll be 71 this year.
Oh,
So
71. Okay, I thought you said you were. Oh, you were talking about the years, and I was going to say
yeah,
no, no, no. You're not.
1955. Sorry. Yeah, no, I was born in
You're not 65.
1955. No, no, no. I'm 70 plus.
Yeah.
Still
Hey, and I
kicking.
got to tell you, you got the lucky genetic draw.
That's true. I
My
have to
mother's
think, but
side, all the men have this hairstyle.
yeah, I think gotta thank my mom.
Well, and I think you might owe Grandpa something too,
Yeah,
Grandpa Brown. His hair, he never really went totally gray.
yeah.
Now, of course, I don't know if I'm not going to ask you. Uh,
I it's not colored. This is all natural. It's all natural
well,
here.
I knew the beard was natural. I didn't know the top was.
No, it's all natural. It's there's gray in there. You just can't see it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
You
not
should
good.
take your
It's ready.
genetics and sell them. You could be
But
the
I
sort of
could.
Randy Brown's gene therapy.
Right.
Wow, that is amazing. Of course, Larry, my brother, he has pretty much the same blood, lucky because well, but our dad, his dad, and your dad were brothers.
Right.
So, but anyway, so you guys out there have had the joy of a visit of watching of actually the first relative I've ever had that's shown up. Oh no, Eden, uh, uh, Ollie, my granddaughter showed up one time to talk about children's. Um, Here's a one, Brandy. Did you ever try and explain the virgin birth to a Muslim?
Yeah, I saw that. No, it's interesting. I really didn't feel it was my point to try to convert anybody. That's probably where I was maybe going through my own change of, oh my God, I'm in a foreign country and I must be a missionary and my job here is to convert everybody. I felt like really it was to understand uh, the culture I was in and understand the people. And we get to have very good friends over there, but it wasn't to try to convince them that they were wrong and I was right. Um, I believe it was C.S. Lewis, if I remember right, in his book with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, that whole series. I think it's the very last book, if I remember. It's been a long time since I've read that. Uh, but I think there, if I will just sort of paraphrase what he said, was there was this concern that because the last book kind of deals with the end of the story, the end of the world, if you will, so it's sort of analogy of that. And some of the folks that were with him were like, well, how are these people going to make it into paradise? They're the enemy, right? They're fighting against us. And his put was, uh, it isn't what it's. Do people believe that? I'm going to paraphrase this poorly, I think, but are they sincere in their beliefs? And I know that's Christianity doesn't like that thought, but are they sincerely doing what they believe is right and moral? And it doesn't matter whether they believe in Aslan or not. What it means, what is important is, have they tried to be true to what they believe? And I kind of view it as that way. I'm not here to say your religion is wrong. Um, it's not my place to do that. I'm not here to try to convert you because my religion is right and your religion is wrong. So it was more about trying to understand them and understand, meaning the Saudis, and understand what made them tick. Um, and not about trying to convince them that we had a better religion than them. Now, I would say that that wasn't always true. There's many times we go out to meet with them, and they felt they should try to convert us over to their view of the world, but that's okay.
Well, you know what, Randy? I can think of a lot of worse people to actually put those papers that you have that says you can be a preacher man. I could see not being bothered by the ministry you might bring forth if you ever did go do that. Uh, and maybe that's what the world needs is more people willing to say it's not what you believe, but honest to God, I know this sounds bad, but how you believe it.
Yeah.
You know, if you believe, that we help feed the poor, and then that's a far better way of believing than a whole bunch of other ways I can think of.
Yeah.
And so I will tell you this, cousin Krista, you lucked out. You got a good one for a dad, and take care of him. So that because you know, pretty good guy. And so that said, Randy, any closing comments you want to make to the world?
And, hey, thanks, Bob, for letting me for let's just chat together today and enjoy kind of getting reconnected on some things. Hopefully, this is helpful to some, and look forward to just continuing to have a dialogue with you. Thank you.
The well, you're welcome, and I am. I am. I have to admit, I had no idea how this was going to go today, but I said, you know what? This. I think this was a good thing because a lot of people in the more progressive are not tolerant as much as I would like to see them be. That you tell them you're a Christian, and they're going to draw some bad conclusions. Now, in many cases, those conclusions could be right. But I believe that if, we get away from the concept of judging people due to a label and
Hmm.
just enjoy their company, help them, lift them when we can, support them when we can, it'll be a better place for us all. And so that said, that's B Cube's Sunday morning sermon brought to you by uh, B Cube Press. Now, next week we have David Wright and Jim Wright and David Gerald coming in, and I am confident that they will have nothing but praise for Trump this weekend because as somebody who got sent to do the dirty work from time to time, I got to believe that nobody is going to have anything nice to say about plopping 2,500 Marines on the ground in the Straits of Hormuz to go do uh, uh, missions or against missile sites, ground missions. So it'll be an interesting show, and maybe if we're really lucky, he'll talk about his latest picture of the red-breasted woodpecker or something so that we can listen and be happy and not be depressed when we're done. So that said, later, guys.